All right, no problem. Thanks for checking. All right, we're going live now.
Give me access, Bob. I'm going to present my own stuff.
Okay, Ms. Bradley, we're good.
All right. We will call to order this meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education work session on December 13th, 2021. We have 3 members present, Ms. Springate, Ms. Glass, and I, and the other 2 members will join us as soon as they're able. Mr. Martello, if you'd like to get started, the work session is for the budget.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So for tonight, I was going to continue on from where I left off on the evening of the 15th. If I'm not mistaken, I got through the entire PowerPoint on that evening, and I was getting into the attachments for expenditures and budget and different things that were requested of me specifically for the May 15th, the November 15th meeting, and just general requests for the purpose of that meeting. So I've given you copies. These are additional copies of what was presented on the night of the 15th. And I'll start with the first item. This is color-coded for the list of general fund expenditures that you've received in years past, at least for the last couple of years, breaking out what we have itemized in terms of the general fund budget in the different programs. On the left-hand side, the first left of the yellow category, it states required. In the second left column, it's supplemental. And then in the third, it's discretionary. And, those are self-explanatory areas, nothing that hasn't been seen in the past on previous presentations. Then within the column E and column F, it's actually taking the cumulative portions of the required, supplemental, and discretionary, and it's actually breaking out the total of those 3 columns and placing them on whether or not it's a salary and fringe expense for the staff cost or a program cost. And that would be anything, as I say, non-warm body or non-salary and fringe. So that could be a purchase service, that could be supplies and materials, that could be a capital outlay purchase, anything tangible or service, basically. And then the column G and H, and these are both fluid columns, those are estimated ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 expenditures for this fiscal year. Now, not everything that's itemized in those 2 columns are existing expenditures. There could be new initiatives, we gave the $800,000 to the schools, the school allocations. So those allocation dollars are within those 2 columns, as well as some taking advantage of some of those federal dollars with those programs and things that we're already doing. So you see totals at the very bottom. And again, these are fluid numbers. This was done approximately November 1st, and we make changes within the budget at times on a daily basis. So it's not going to line up but a good portion of it is going to be similar through the weeks. Okay. Any questions on this handout?
I do have some questions, but if other people want to go first, that's fine.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. I actually blew the document up a little bit and then added some information in the first column, so I wanted to ask some questions about that, but I made copies for everyone if anyone would like to have a larger copy.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops.
first question is on, I labeled it column 6 because that's the number that was used in the original document. So just I thought it would be easy to be able to go back and compare. So my first question is about column 6. It's middle school athletics. And in that one, it looks like the allocation is down $12,500. And so my question was, I'm looking at the program cost of $9,000.90 and the total cost of $9,000.90. And I was thinking that we approved a new program for the middle school with lacrosse. And so I'm wondering if that number is accurate or if it reflects that also.
So just so I'm clear, the negative 12,500 is something that you added. Did you make any other changes in the other columns?
I did. I actually did the condensed yellow columns at the beginning. I just condensed that down to total. Some of it was discretionary, some of it was mandatory. He had 3 columns on the original sheet, so I just condensed it down.
Okay.
So the 3 columns on the original spreadsheet are all added together for a total.
Okay. And you have a number of questions based on the spreadsheet you created, I'm sure. Yes?
No, I didn't create it.
No.
I just, I tried to use the spreadsheet that he had, and then I just compared the original one that Ms. Smith did for fiscal year 21 to this one and looked at what the differences might be. So that's all it is just kind of looks at the differences. And then the first question really isn't even about, a comparison as much as it is about if it's, a difference of negative 12,500 for middle school athletics. My question is, does that reflect the lacrosse program that we put in place for the middle school?
I
I
understand.
expect that to be up. That's the only reason I asked.
I understood the question. So how did you arrive at the 12,500? That was Ms. Smith's number from a previous spreadsheet?
Right. So I took the total cost from the previous spreadsheet and then just compared it to the amounts on the spreadsheet Mr. Martello updated.
Okay. I think it would have been great to have this in advance of the meeting, not to start things off in that.
I just went and got copies after work today. So, and again, we can talk about it maybe in January.
Do you have copies of Ms. Smith's spreadsheet? Because I was never given that. I wasn't on the board then, so I don't have that too.
I think Mr. Martello provided it at the meeting on the 8th.
Okay.
How long has Ms. Smith been gone? I don't know. How
Mr.
long have you been
Martello,
here, Ms.
when did you
Martello?
start?
Did you?
I started September of 20, and
So her spreadsheet that she gave us was for us to look at planning for the 2021 year, and so this is for,
Ms. Springate, honestly, and I'm sure you've got a number of questions that you've had the time to research and put me on the spot. Honestly, these are budget estimates. We make budget changes and budget amendments on a daily basis. So if there's a difference of $12,500 over the course of nearly a $31 million operating budget, there may be some differences. And quite honestly, I may not have caught everything, and I'm not perfect. But in the grand scheme of things, $12,000 over a $30 million budget, you may see some differences, and you may see some things that need to be changed.
and again, I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm simply asking because we allocated lacrosse funds for the middle school, yet this is a $9,000 expense for them. So $9,000 is their total budget. And to be down $12,500 when we added a program is just something I want to ask about. That's, to me, what a budget work session is for. It's not about putting you on the spot or being mean to you. It's really about just help me understand if we allocated a new program for the middle school. The total cost that was allocated was $9,000 here. And so that's down $12,500 after we added a program. So again, if it needs to be adjusted, that's okay. I mean, I think that's an acceptable answer.
And can you share with us, did you bring your computer, can you share with us the specific version that you were using when you prepared this?
It was Ms. Smith's version, and no, I don't have copies of that.
Do you have
I mean,
an
if we-
idea as to what date that was? It was
Yeah,
submitted?
It was for fiscal year 21, so
But
she
what
prepared
date?
it for
It could have been any
2021.
time during the planning budget, during the,
I don't
through
have
that budget
that.
process.
Ms. Springate, that's not a correct statement. That was prepared in January or February of 2020.
For the fiscal year 2021.
6 months short of the start of a fiscal year.
It was
That,
for
that
planning.
but for that planning, number one, that's not even apples to apples, because the work that was done in January or February, there's the opportunity for that to change 9 months later and adopt a budget in September. So number one, that's not even apples to apples.
Well, what
Number-
I'm talking
number-
about is a document that was prepared, the last one was prepared for fiscal year 2021 by Ms. Smith, and the one that you prepared is the one that I'm talking about tonight. So again, I'm not trying to be difficult, and honestly, it might be easier just to go through the questions, and if you don't have an answer, I don't mind if you get back to us, or I don't mind if your answer is, oh, maybe I didn't include the lacrosse there. I just want to know that information.
My
That's all.
answer is, if lacrosse with lacrosse being a sport in FY21, or FY22, the expenditure would come out of that string in that middle school athletic operational expenditure. And if a budget adjustment needs to be made, a budget adjustment can be made
Sounds great,
with
thank
an
you.
operational approach.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just asking, I want to make sure that we allocate it and make sure that we're going to have it across the middle school.
Sure, and I think it'd be helpful, just so everyone is looking at the same information, is it possible for you to email the spreadsheet that you're referencing so that we can see it as well?
No, I don't have my computer with me, but again, I have a hard copy. Did you receive a hard copy
That's
at the November budget session meeting?
Of the one that Ms. Smith prepared? I'm
It's public record, it's online. Ms.
sure. Hang on,
Ms.
let me see.
Springate.
If we got a hard copy of Miss Cooper, maybe I would make
That's
copies
what I was
for
gonna say.
everyone.
So, my last email with any attachments from Ms. Smith is from July of 2020.
Can you look at the budget meeting for last month and see if it was one of the attachments?
Sure.
I looked, I didn't see it there, but maybe I'm looking at
I believe I received this from Mr. Martello, but I could be mistaken. It could have been something I just pulled out of my bag.
Let's see, 11:15.
Which one are we talking about?
Budget work
Ms.
session.
Smith's original document.
You'll have to go back to the January or February of 2020 meeting online and look for it.
Let me just make
I have some scribbles at the bottom of this, but I don't mind giving it to Angel to make a copy.
I just think it'd be helpful if we're all able to look at the same information.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I did the math and put it in the first column of this sheet. But
Typically, though, when we're given the forms, the Excel spreadsheets are locked.
And now
she's
that
going to make a copy. So
Okay, we'll wait until we get that.
I look at it, I mean, I'm just speaking off the top of my head since I was just provided this information.
this is the
I-
information you gave me.
It's not an attachment from last month.
Right, but this is your spreadsheet. I just combined the yellow columns down to one column. So it's
Ms. Springate, I didn't have the time to try to compare, to go back 2 years to try to do all these notes on what you're questioning. But neither here nor there. You'll see an increase of 48,000 on an athletic piece. I may have just put it as a holding place for, if this is an additional 48,000 for athletics, I may have put a holding place there for an increased amount of expenditures for lacrosse. Me just thinking off the top of my head. Because I do
Okay.
see the increase there if these numbers are accurate.
And again, that makes sense, but I asked the question because it didn't make sense that would go down when we added expenses. So you think you might have just put it as a holder at the high school instead of the middle school?
At the top of my, off the top of my head, Ms. Springate, I have to make day-to-day decisions, operational.
That's okay, it's just important we get accurate information so that we can make sure
Understood.
that the allocations and the numbers are
You have a
good and
second
correct.
question?
So, I don't know if Ms. Bradley wanted to wait or,
Yeah, let's wait until we have the,
Well, that way we can all see
yeah.
what,
I see,
what Ms.
yeah.
Smith did.
Bob, are there a lot of people watching right now?
Here's what you got.
Okay. We can call a 5-minute recess while Ms. Cooper gets that for us.
Well, it was still kind of up in the air, yeah, at one point, I don't know if they ever went through with it or not.
She called me asking.
This document. I think in order to
I'm
be
just
transparent,
wondering,
we
like,
need
if
to
we're
know the
looking
date.
at pre-pandemic budget projections versus 2 years later. Let's see. We can go through your questions. I'm just not sure that we're comparing like numbers for a.
Well, what we're comparing is what, Ms. Smith prepared for the budget for that, what we spent, what she anticipated us spending, versus what Mr. Martello, a year later, fiscal year later, is kind of budgeting or kind of guesstimating. So again, they're just questions. Just we added lacrosse, that should be higher. So it sounds like maybe that's something he can look at. I'm not sure where he is, so I guess we'll wait.
I will say that, I mean, as far as the validity of this document, without a date, without knowing the original source, I mean, we know Ms. Springate brought it, so I'm assuming she got it from Ms. Smith at some point. But at one point, she also said she got it from Mr. Martello, so.
I'm not sure if Mr. Martello provided Ms. Smith's document or if
I
Ms.
think
Smith,
that's what you
it's Ms.
said, but I'm
Smith's
not,
original
again,
document.
that's what makes it a little bit
Well, that's okay.
contradictory.
Ms. Smith actually emailed it to all of us, and so I think it's also attached to previous agendas. So you can go back and print it from there. I simply was trying to share what I had. So my next question is about line item 10. It's board activities. It looks like board activities have increased by $111,091.95, although costs have decreased down to $14,663.47. And again, I just didn't feel like that felt accurate. The cost for board members to attend meetings and trainings exceeds this amount, and attorney fees should also fall into this category.
So what is your specific question? Why is there an increase?
No, my specific question is, I'm not sure that that staffing number is correct.
Staffing?
Grant, is this something that you, if it includes attorney's fees, I'm still working to find the original document, if you want to address that?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I switched to a set of headphones with a built-in microphone that I can't hear you all very well. I don't have any documents in front of me. Don't know what you all are looking at as far as the spreadsheets. So I don't know the line items that you're talking about or what's included.
If we're talking about the month, if we're talking, because I don't know without seeing it in front of me. If we're talking about the salary cost of board members to attend a training, if it's coming out of that category, that would be a part of the 14,000 plus if there's corresponding fringe. So you take every board member, multiply the number of board meetings that we've had, that could contribute to that estimated 14,000 on the staff cost.
Well, you also have to look at virtual attendance as well.
Yes, sir.
Right, so what I'm saying is if you times that out for this past year, it's higher than that. And then if you add the attorney's staff cost into that, it's also higher.
What number, are you referring just to the staff cost?
Right, to board
Well,
activities.
that's not a correct statement, because the attorney's fee would be in the program cost column and not the staff cost.
Okay, well, I misunderstood. I'm glad you corrected that. On the original document that Ms. Smith prepared, I thought that it was in the staff cost, so I'll go back and double check that. The other question I have is that this item should include liability insurance, and it's not noted in this report, but I saw on the ESSER 2 expense report that ESSER funds were being used to the amount of about $79,000 for the insurance.
Well, first, that's not a correct statement. The document that you're referring to is referring to FY21, not FY22, so it wouldn't be on this line item.
Are we anticipating covering liability insurance for FY22?
We have the opportunity to do that. As of today, that's a no.
So if you were going to, it should be on this document, and you might include that at some point?
On November 1st, if that was the direction, it would be included on this document. But like we've always said on ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, it's fluid and it can change next month.
Right, I understand that it's fluid, but I guess what I'm getting at is if that's the plan, then I would like to see it on here so that I would know that's the plan and that would be that amount there. So I'm just trying to get a handle on exactly what it's going to be spent on. So if that's the plan, could you please include it? And if it's not, that's okay.
This was the plan as of November 1st. We have 3 more years to spend those dollars. So this won't be the final version on where those dollars are budgeted.
But again, I would like to know the plan before we see the receipt if it's already been covered.
Okay.
So that's why I asked. The next question I have is about line item 19. It's district maintenance budget. I see that it's been reduced $392,631.56. But according to our Munis report in June on page 8, we ended fiscal year with expenses totaling $3,282,274, and then I just went back to fiscal year 20 just to kind of see what that ending was, and it was $3,375,781.87. So I guess the current maintenance budget is $1,997,276.61, and this is a decrease from both fiscal year 20 and 21 of around $1.2 million. I don't understand why we have that reduction, I guess, so that's my question, I'm just asking.
In the course of a fiscal year, you have multiple variables. You could have an insurance claim in 1 year, or you had a higher expense, like last year we had the flood, as well as we had another insurance claim of a flood at the high school. Those increases could be larger. I perhaps could have lessened the budget thinking that we'd have a good year without insurance claims. So there's just different variables.
Okay.
We had a COVID year versus a non-COVID year. We could not be in school at this year or versus last. There's multiple variables, Ms. Springate.
I understand, but if it's usually around 3.2 million, I'm just curious as to why it would drop down to 1.9. And again, I'm looking at our working budget for 2021-22 that you gave us, and you have in here as the plant operations and maintenance $3,759,592. Yet on this document, you have it as $1,997,000. So I'm just trying to understand a difference of, millions of dollars.
I wish I'd have the hours and hours to research these questions that you're asking me about. Ms.
I just
Frigay.
need good estimates. I think hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars off in estimates are not good estimates. And that's all I'm trying to get at, is what exactly the numbers are. If it was just a couple $100, $5, $10, I wouldn't ask.
These
But
are-
since it's $1.2 million, and one document says it's gonna be, your estimate is $3,759,000, yet this document says your estimate is $1.9 million. That's all I'm just trying to understand.
I think the thing is, there are 2 points here. One, we had this discussion last week that if there were detailed questions from multiple sources of information, to give him the best chance to be able to answer those, he's got to have them in advance.
And I have emailed, and this is his document, so I have emailed these questions, Ms. Bradley. I have emailed questions about
Mrs.
staff
Spinelli,
and about
just,
ESSER.
you just gave us this document. You
This
said you
is
just
hi-
printed.
This
I
is
understand,
his
but
document.
we have no
So
way
all
to.
I gave you was my working numbers where I subtracted and added so that you would have them. So I didn't give you a new document. I didn't create a new document. I looked at the
Where did
documents
this
he
document
gave,
come
and I
from?
just
You didn't
subtracted
create?
things out.
Okay, I'm
So
just
again,
saying
it's
that
not a new
you
document. I was just
altered
trying to share.
the original document given to us by one person. We're now comparing it to a document that was given to us by another person to almost,
It
what,
was for
18?
fiscal year 21.
Year and a
And
half,
again, he
Just
updated
hold
Ms.
on just
Smith's
a second.
document.
May I finish?
And I'm asking him about his updates.
Okay.
So these are his updates, and that's all I'm asking about.
Okay, may I finish?
Please.
What I'm saying is, the document Ms. Smith gave us had projections with projections of growth or certain specific levels of increase that she's not here to explain to us how she arrived at those numbers. So asking him to explain the difference between her projected, not final numbers, and his much later projected, not final numbers, without any advanced warning, is a bit of a leap.
Well, and again, I feel like that's not a characterization of what's happening. What the document that I just read was the working budget that he gave us. It's not a Ms. Smith document. It's not a 2 years ago document.
You
It's his
just-
working budget that he gave us.
You just said
And
that
this
Mr.
is
Martello may not have given you
number-
that document that you think Ms.
This
Smith
working
did.
budget is the budget he gave us, Mr. Atkins. I'm gonna just let me start over. I might not have explained it properly. This is the working budget document that Mr. Martello
Okay,
gave
I
us.
got you.
So the
The one he
number
gave us
on
back
this
in
document
November 1,
is
right?
3 million, no,
No,
this
that-
is not. This is
so-
the working budget from just a few months ago.
Would that be
And
November?
then
That's not a
is
correct
the
statement.
document.
That budget was back to May.
A few months ago,
A few months ago was May. Okay.
I have a question. So I've never seen this document from Ms. Smith until now. So was this something that she just proposed, or was this something that the board voted on, like that this was
This was a-
something?
it was
This was a
something the board
board
requested
request.
and voted on, yes.
No,
To
we didn't
receive,
vote on
yes,
it.
We absolutely voted to receive this document.
But you didn't vote that this was the.
We didn't.
The budget, like this wasn't your working budget that.
No, this was a document
That
that
you
we
adopted.
asked to receive so that we could plan ahead. And so
Yes.
what I'm trying
Okay.
to do is kind of get a grasp on where we were, where we are, and what those trends kind of look like, to get a grasp on what our working budget
And
is,
when
what
was
we're
this given
spending,
to the
and
board?
where.
There's no date on it. That's-
It's,
Mr. Martellus was given to us in November.
Nearly.
I know that. I'm
we're-
talking about
we're-
Ms. Smith, because I've never
we're-
seen this.
this was
We are
given to
nearly-
us in January of 2020.
So we are 1 month removed, 2 years ago, from trying to compare. And the other thing is, and Ms. Smith's not here to defend, nor is Mr. Hawkins, what was proposed then.
And that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is your numbers, your proposals, your estimates, and what we've spent on ESSER. So we're not even asking what Ms. Smith did or Mr. Hawkins did. I'm talking about your estimates, Mr. Martello.
But you
And
are
I'm sorry I didn't
But
make
you
that
are
clear.
presenting Ms. Smith's document as a comparison.
As
So
though
I used Mrs. Smith's document as a comparison, so I shared that information with you so you would see where I got that
Right, so
information.
you are questioning.
No,
differences.
absolutely not. I'm questioning Mr. Martello's spreadsheet that Mr. Martello gave us on November, for our November budget meeting.
Compared to
And-
Ms. Smith's.
And again,
Compared to Ms. Smith's, right?
no,
I-
compared to the working budget he gave us, also compared to just the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 questions and the documents that he gave, that there's discrepancies and there's differences. And again, it's not $5, $10, it's sometimes hundreds of thousands, and can be millions. And so again, I'm just trying to get through this document that he gave us at a work session so that we can talk about the document that he gave us. So my next question is on line item 35 about health services. The budget shows $335,007.58. And this one does have 20,000 of ESSER 2 in the ESSER 2 column and 237,525.07 of ESSER 3. But our ARP ESSER spending plan that we have online on the district website doesn't include either of those numbers for health services. So
It's fluid. Once again, it's fluid. That was a plan that was presented and put on the website, or that was submitted on the website, I think at the end of August. It's a fluid document.
it
And we
should
have
reflect
seen-
these expenses if you are putting them on one thing and not another, because I can't understand what you're spending it on and what you're not spending it on if it's fluid and changes. Now, the ESSER 2 expenses, they've been allocated, they've been spent. 1.9 of that, I guess, has been already spent. So that's not fluid, that's done, the checks have been written,
And
it's
those
been
things
reported.
aren't, that would be something that we need to look at in expenses, not budget projections.
Well, he has that in the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 columns, so that's why I wanted to look at it here. And again, I just want our information to be, to match.
Ms. Smith doesn't even have ESSER dollars on here.
Correct. Mr. Martello updated the document, and that is the document that we're looking at.
Please
The
don't-
Mr. Martello updates. That
Please
is
don't act
correct.
like
We didn't have ESSER 2.
These questions are absurd. When you brought in
I
information.
said that is correct.
When you brought in an updated or a made-up spreadsheet that
It's
you.
Mr. Martello's spreadsheet.
This
And
is
again,
your spreadsheet, Miss.
number
This is
10,
your spreadsheet. This is the one you handed out.
that is a
This is the one
spreadsheet
you
where I
handed
did
out
some
to
work on
everybody.
the side, adding and subtracting what the last
So
document to
you
this
had to
document.
create this
I
because
didn't.
his does not have
I-
these red numbers. You had to create this.
I compared Miss
So you
Smith's
compared it to
document
Ms. Smith.
to
Okay.
Mr. Martello's
You finally
document
said it.
and looked at the
That's
That's what Ms.
changes.
Glass says. You
Right, and
compared it
that's
to
what I
Ms. Smith.
explained at the very beginning. I'm
Got it.
sorry if I wasn't clear.
Can-
So this is questions about Mr. Martello's spreadsheet, using the information from the original spreadsheet and the updated spreadsheet. So, let's see. Where
I'll be,
were we?
I'll be
think
honest,
we
I'm
talked
having a
about
hard
health
time
services.
following all
Can I
this.
make a statement?
This is very hard to follow.
Miss,
Well, that's why I printed out my work so that you could see where I was getting the numbers.
And I think the best thing to do is if you will submit the questions in writing.
I have done that, and to be fair, I haven't received answers that are very responsive. For instance, I asked what staff at what school, classified and certified, were covered with ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. For example, I said, Southside, 5th grade teacher, this, so that I could get a handle on what we were spending ESSER funds for,
You know,
staff-wise
that
in each
is
school.
really,
That hasn't
that
been
is really
provided.
in the middle of personnel.
So those
When you start identifying
those
a grade classroom
positions,
teacher.
is what I was interested in at each school. But again, I think that to scream and yell while I'm asking about a document for a budget session that was presented to us for the budget session, where Mr. Martello asked if we had questions about this document, is really sad. I feel like
don't
I should
think
be able to
anyone is
answer the
screaming or
questions.
yelling. I
I
think-
think that it's good to answer the questions, and we would be done if we could just kind of get through them. I won't interrupt you when you ask questions, and I really would appreciate the same courtesy. So, just, real briefly, line item 62, summer school, that shows a total cost of $103,825.07. ESSER 2 funds, we're covering $103,646, and ESSER 3 covering $236,002.64. So here's my confusion. The ESSER plan has an allocation of $95,895.27 in the budget. The ESSER spending plan listed the allocation as $425,000 for fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. To date, the ESSER 2 expenses project to date report is $1,996,103.08 of the $2.1 million budget being spent. So my question is, what was purchased with the funds that were set aside for the summer school?
Is that something that you could take a look at and get back to us?
Ms. Jones could probably give us a really good ballpark because she ran summer school this summer.
I understand, and these are the numbers, and these
Roughly.
are the numbers from the documents that Mr. Martello provided, and they're all different. So,
One is
So
a
you don't care what
projection.
it's spent on, you're wanting to know why the difference. Again,
well, I
I
want
can't
to
follow your
want to
line
know
of
what
questioning.
it is spent on, because it's different than what we allocated, and because it's different in sheet to sheet to sheet that we're given.
Now, here could be the answer, if you'll,
Okay,
let me
please.
explain this to you. So, there were monies allocated through ESSER 2 that were spot on and should have been allocated to ESER two, but were spent out of general fund. Now, when you hired 13 teachers to eliminate class size or to reduce class size, where would you have paid for that money from?
The board voted and
Where
actually
would you
made a
pay for that
plan
money
of
from?
where we were gonna spend that money and how we spent it, and that was done before you arrived as superintendent.
Exactly.
So that was done the fiscal year that ended on June the 30th. You didn't arrive and weren't superintendent until July 1st. So again,
I
I
did take
think
the
that,
money that was in my
I think that
legal
my
leeway
question-
and put it to ESER two instead of general fund.
and again, my question just is that it's different on different documents, the number is different, the allocations are different, and if we didn't spend it on the summer school allocation, my question just was where was it spent on? And again, you know, I don't know what to say other than I asked the questions, and
And
I'll
I'm trying
continue to
give you
ask
an answer, You
questions.
won't let me give you an answer.
Well, that's not an answer.
That's not an answer.
No, it really isn't. That's talking about something, I guess, different, so.
It is if it's what you want to talk about.
Grant, did you want to weigh in?
I don't really know what to say.
I'm with you.
I mean, I don't understand that you are talking about a projection by some other individuals, and without Mr. Martello having time to take that spreadsheet from whenever it was sent to you all and try to figure out where those totals were derived, I don't know how he can say why the later number is different without knowing what was included within the estimate before he was ever hired. So I'm having trouble following. I'd say I don't have any of these documents in front of me, and I'm not regularly asked to review budget and financial records because that doesn't usually require legal advice. So all of this is fair game for discussion in a budget session, but it doesn't sound like a very productive discussion without Mr. Martello having been given a heads up as to what his homework was, which was to review a document that was prepared before he was ever hired to find out where those numbers, how those numbers were derived.
And Mr. Chenoweth, to be fair, I'm not asking him to find out where those numbers derived. What I asked him to do months ago was to look at Ms. Smith's document, to use that, and then to update it for us. So he had the document, Ms. Smith's document. He updated Ms. Smith's document. That's what he did when he gave us the new document. That is
Right,
where
but-
this came from. So he
But as-
had the document, he reviewed the document, he gave us the numbers, and my questions about the ESER 2 and ESER 3 are about what we've done, what he's allocated, where that was on the ESER 2 and 3 plans. So that has nothing to do with Ms. Smith's document. She didn't
But
have.
as
Yeah.
I heard your question, you were saying her number was this, your number is this.
No.
Why is it so different?
Yeah, no, this is
Can't
summer
know-
school, these are all his numbers.
Am I allowed to finish my question, Ms. Springate?
Please.
When you ask the question, why is his number so different than hers? He has to then know how her number was arrived at to know why his number is that different. Him updating the document is taking those categories and determining what the actual dollar figures are for those categories. But to figure out the why for the difference into any category, he would have to know what was included in that document that he was overhauling, the document that he was updating.
I understand
So
what you're saying.
What are the numbers is one question. Why are the numbers different is an entirely different question.
Correct.
And
Yeah, I do
That's-
understand what you're saying, and again, this is about the ESER document, which was not included in Ms. Smith's document at all. So it's really about the ESER documents that he gave us, that he prepared, and about the document, the update that he prepared. So, again, I do agree that this has not been terribly productive. I tried to give a handout tonight so that folks could see the comparison of the two documents. I took the time to go back and compare the documents, but I understand not everyone did, or not everyone may have received Ms. Smith's document. So that's why I just wanted to kind of show my notes and show the difference in the two documents money-wise. And again, none of the ESER questions were included in Ms. Smith's document. All of the ESER questions have to do with Mr. Martello's documents. And then, so I guess I'll just end with this. Our line item 68 is about Title III, the general fund supplement for English learners. And I would just say that I think our data supports the need to put more money in place to help this group of students. I also think that our data supports the need to put ESSER money in place to support our special education and our other GAP population students. And that if closing the gap is really a priority, that our budget should reflect that. And that, I hope that that's something that we can have discussions about in the future.
I will say the one thing that I found interesting through this whole process was that Ms. Springate has directed Mr. Martello to do something, which is directly in violation of day-to-day activities. And I didn't say that, you did.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Perhaps you could explain.
You just said you directed Mr. Martello to do this, 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 and this.
Correct. I did ask Mr. Martello to prepare and
you
update
didn't
that
say yes.
document in an open meeting.
You
People
said
can go back
correct.
and watch the recording. I
You
asked
said
for the
correct.
document to be updated, and he did update it, and I'm very thankful and appreciative for the update because I think it provides a lot of insight into our trends, into our budget, into our totals, and helps us plan for the future. So thank you.
So will you be submitting the questions that you want, that you've presented tonight?
I have submitted questions to Mr. Martello, and I'm just awaiting answers.
You submitted
So I
these
submitted
same
questions
questions?
about this document to Mr. Martello. I've submitted questions repeatedly about ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 in writing to Mr. Martello, and I've also asked at meetings of Mr. Martello. And so I do look forward to some answers because I think it's not just me that's curious. Staff has approached me. Parents have approached me. Folks really want to know and get a handle on what our priorities are and where we're spending this money. And again, just to say it's fluid isn't really the best of answers. We need to have a
spending this money
plan
on
and we
kids.
need to follow the plan. And so I like, hopeful that we can get to that point. So thank you.
So
I
just
can
so,
assure you
just so I'm sure, just one moment, Mr. Atkins. Just so I'm clear, you have submitted the spreadsheet that you prepared tonight with the questions that you went through
No,
tonight.
Mr. Martello gave us the spreadsheet. And so tonight at the budget session, I was just asking questions
the
about it.
spreadsheet that you changed and modified
I-
by condensing columns. Did you send that to him with, say, Mr. Martello, I'm going to ask about the $12,500 deficit on what I'm now calling line item 6, so that you can prepare to have that ready so that we can discuss that in a transparent and productive way in a meeting?
What I have sent to Mr. Martello over and over and over again is questions to the documents that he sent, and I've asked those questions in open meeting. I feel like it's very important that everybody hear the answers to the questions, so he gave me that document. I looked at that document and came up with some questions, and then I asked those questions. I have also submitted questions about that document and about the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3 to Mr. Martello repeatedly, and so I'm waiting on some answers from him, and I'm hopeful that we can discuss this openly in meetings. Again, that's Mr. Martello's document for the budget, just like we had a CDIP presented last week, and we asked questions about it. So it's the same thing. So we had a document presented, and I asked questions about it.
Sure, I understand what you're saying.
Thank you.
Could you answer my question? The question is, did you send this spreadsheet that you modified to Mr. Martello so that he could be adequately prepared?
I brought the spreadsheet tonight so that I could share my work with everyone, just in case everyone didn't go back and compare the two documents. So I just was trying to share my work so that everyone could kind of see where I was coming from.
I appreciate that,
But
because I
no.
don't think it would have been a natural leap for any of the rest of the members to pull a document created almost 2 years ago that was a projection and compare it to a 2 years later
And
post-pandemic.
again, it wasn't 2 years later. Ms. Smith prepared the document for fiscal year 21.
It was
Mr.
prepared
Martello
on-
presented this new document updating it. So I was naturally comparing the two. And that's okay if no one else wanted
So,
to do that.
I'm just
but I
saying,
thought
it was
important.
given to the board on January 21st, 2020. We are in December of 2021. So in 1 month, the document that you're sharing or comparing will be 2 years old, correct?
And again, if you look at that document and you look at the document Mr. Martello created, a lot of the categories, the majority of the categories, are very consistent. So what I was trying to look at is trends, and also if there were big changes, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in changes, those kinds of trends. And so that's really what I think is important, is for us to have a handle on what we're spending our money on, what is being covered or plugged with ESSER, and then to be able to plan and project based on priorities. So when we look at that list, what I'm looking at is what are the priorities. I understand that the original document was prepared by Ms. Smith for fiscal year 21, and we are now in fiscal year 22. I completely understand that. What I'm saying is it's not far off to look at that and then project what we might be doing and to look at those categories. So for example, one category that was included in Ms. Smith's document was equity, and that wasn't included in Mr. Martello's document. So there
I
are
guess
definitely some differences and some changes.
the way that you initially asked was not, I noticed that the middle school athletic fund is trending down. It was, there's a specific difference of $12,500.
That's the
Why
difference.
is that? That's not a trend question. That's a specific, please account for
And
this
again, that
amount.
question had to do with the board approving lacrosse, which is an increase in costs. So my question was, why would it go down this $12,000? I didn't want to be vague. I wanted to just say, why
So
has
it's not-
that happened?
but
and
again-
so I think Mr. Martello was going to,
And here's the thing, at the end of the day, I can't speak for the actions 2 years ago in the middle of a pandemic. Because when you pull up the draft budget, and again, I'm making an assumption, and that's not fair to the people that were in that seat, nor is it fair to be compared to them today. But there was a draft budget of a deficit of three options, nearly 1.8, nearly 2.4, and over 2.7 million. So to compare my budget, or the budget from November 1st to 2 years ago, that was based on a budget deficit, they're not apples to apples.
and again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I just want to understand where we are with expenses, what we're spending the money on. The categories seem very consistent. The amounts seem very consistent in most cases. And again, most of my questions had to do with the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, which are directly things that you've kind of dealt with in the document that you prepared. So thank you.
Okay,
I
moving
can
on.
answer our priorities are kids. The money's being spent on kids. That's, I
Okay.
mean, that's all on the matrix.
We have 4 minutes before we start our regular meeting. I'm not sure how much further.
Sure. Going to the next handout, there's an ESSER 3 or ESSER 2 expenses project to date. This is something that you asked for, Ms. Springate. This is reflective as of November 1st.
And so that's not fluid. It's the numbers as of November 1st. Okay, thank you.
Expenditures to date. CARES as of November 1st for your request, Ms. Springate.
And that's one that is completed. We have no funds remaining.
Very small amount.
Okay, thank you.
Per your request, the ARP expenditures for expenses project to date for ESSER 3 on or around November 1st.
Okay, and again, this is not fluid. These are actual expenses as of November
That's what
1st. Okay,
expenses.
thank you.
Yes. And then the GEARS expenses project to date, this is pretty much liquidated.
Okay, thank you.
And then the ESSER 2 expenditures, this is one that this is the same copy for November 1st. You've asked what was recoded for FY21. That's on there for the top half. And then as of November 1st, that was an estimate of what would be expensed out of ESSER 2 that could have had the potential to hit the general fund. So you see the different items there for ESSER
Thank
2.
you.
ESSER 3, this is as of November 1st. For the next handout, those were estimates on what could have hit ESSER 3 that otherwise possibly could have been a general fund expenditure. And then I went back and updated as of today, and again, it could change, but the bottom half of ESER two, or I'm sorry, the bottom half for FY '22, those are budget amounts. That, you know, as of today, and then ESER three as of today for the different categories there. For the 12-13 version.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martello.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn the work session?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Glass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The work session is adjourned.
Hey, Grant, we're gonna move to the other, link now for the main meeting. Gotcha. Probably so. Okay, you're good to go whenever.
Who brought in all the Sylvania bags?
I did.
Where'd you get all the Sylvania bags?
I kept them in my
All right, let's call to order the board meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education on December 13, 2021. And I would like to start off the meeting with a moment of silence for all of our friends in Western Kentucky who have lost their homes, their places of work, or heaven forbid, their family members and friends. If we could all have a moment of silence. Thank you. For the roll call, we have 4 members in attendance in person, and Ms. Richardson has let us know that she had a work obligation and will join us as soon as she's able. If you will stand with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag is located by the doors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any proposed amendments to the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Hearing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, been a super crazy busy month. So let's start off with our football. We know we made it to the semifinals of the state. Awesome. I've had 2 requests since I've been in Woodford County. I've asked the community to come out to send off to the stadium, and I promise you, I've never seen a larger group in my life. Well, even at the Christmas parade, it was about the same size. It was awesome to see that group come out and just get out and support our kids, support our boys. And I talked to some of the players, and they just went on and on about what that meant to them to be able to have that community support. I think Coach Johnson and some of the players even got off over in the town and kind of ran down and slapped high fives. It was amazing to see. Our cheerleaders, Friday night, state champs. Mm-hmm. We're going to do something to recognize them, and we're certainly working on some things. I think I had a pretty good conversation today with the judge about some things that we may be able to do to recognize them. Our performances. Had a chance to speak to some of our choir, our chorus groups, and they're telling me just how awesome it is to be able to perform in person again and have an in-person group instead of having to sing virtually to a screen, and just how great that's been. So we're making some progress. One of the things that we've started working on, I guess Saturday morning, Judge Kay reached out, and as far as some supplies, relief, anything we could do to assist our friends and families and colleagues in Western Kentucky. And I've asked the community for 2 things. One of them was to come out and support our football team. One of them was for this. And I can tell you, if I'm not mistaken, Lizzie, but your ag warehouse or classroom, whatever, is completely full.
Yes, sir.
We will fill a bus tomorrow and send it down Wednesday to Grec, which is their co-op there in Western Kentucky. And because folks don't have anywhere to store the supplies, Grec is going to store it and disperse it as needed. And basically what Grec is just support for all the school districts down there. We have KVEC and CKEC and KDC here. Out there they have Grec and WKEC. So Monday, our goal is to send 2 more buses Monday, and one of those will go to Murray, which is where WKEC is at. The other one will go to Grec again, and they will disperse those and store those items until they're needed. Because from what I can gather, the outpouring has just been unbelievable. They have so many things that, again, they run into issues to store. So we certainly appreciate our communities, our parents, our students, everybody's come forth to help us take care of this and help our friends out west. So thank you all very much. One other thing real quick. We will be featured, or we won't, the district will be, and Mr. Gibson will be featured there tomorrow as David Couch comes to town, and he would be considered, I guess, the technology guru for KDE. So they're coming to town tomorrow, and they will feature us on their monthly webcast. And basically, we're going to get to talk about some great things going on in the district, but they want to hear about Mr. Gibson's device rotation plan. We have just recently added 2 more cycles to that. So, and that's coming out of ESSER dollars as well. Like I said, we're paying for things for kids, but I want to thank Mr. Gibson for what he's done as far as putting together these cycles, because we'll still end up having a device probably in the district for 5 years, but we still have newer devices, I guess you would say, at the higher functioning levels. So again, that's what they were impressed with, was his rotation device or cycle of devices. So thank you for that. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to highlighting the district. That's all I have.
All right. I think this would be a good spot for something that Ms. Schrock asked if we could start adding to the agenda. And I think it's an amazing idea. She said that she thought it would be good if we had sort of a good news report agenda item for each board member, and for her to go around and have a chance to share something positive that they had done in the district in the times between our meetings. So would you like to start?
Of course. Like you said, our FFA, I hate to brag on us like this, but we actually got together and Ms. Probst and Mr. Richardson just texted a group chat that night, the night after the tornado, and we're like, we're setting up something. We're hoping to just get enough to like maybe put it in the back of a truck and take it down there, like whatever we can do to help. And the amount of support and overwhelming amount of love, and just it made me feel so grateful to be in this community, because within the first 30 minutes we already had way more than we were thought that we were going to have the whole day. So I'm just so grateful for that. Like you said, WCHS, our cheerleaders, they won state, and they're super excited about that. And I know that they just got a new coach in, and I know that can be overwhelming. So I'm super proud of them. Our WCHS orchestra and band also had concerts, and I know that they were super excited to be back. Mr. Marcy was super excited about that too. I love him. There are a lot of games coming up. I know they had 2 this week already, right?
Yeah,
like
I was over last week,
yeah.
and then they beat Oldham.
Yep. So super proud of them. There's a bunch of stuff happening at the middle school, like volleyball games and archery tournaments, and then with the elementary school, a bunch of our academic teams are starting. And I know that I wanted to be that so bad in 5th grade, so I know a lot of those are starting, and I'm super proud of them. So that's my positive report.
Thank you both for your report and for the idea. I think that that's a great tone to start our meetings out with. Ms. Glass?
Well, I'm kind of on the spot here, but I know one thing I saw in the district this week I thought was really sweet and exciting is, some of the schools are celebrating holidays with special holiday dress-up days. And I know sometimes I see those come home, I'm like, man, like, one more thing. But I think it's really sweet to celebrate those things at school, because I know not everybody gets to celebrate the holidays and Christmas like we're lucky enough to. So I think it's important that we try to, give a little extra joy these few weeks before Christmas break for our students. So.
Do you have a play coming up at Northside?
Well, we have
When
one
is
in the
that?
spring.
In the spring,
so
okay.
They're doing Junior Bee in the spring. They did their choir or their virtual Christmas program, so they're still doing those virtually. So hopefully that will change soon. So.
All right. I would say that to kind of piggyback on some of the things that Lizzie mentioned, they had such a big turnout for the choir event at the middle school that for the band concert this week, they're staggering the start times. So 6th grade band starts at one time, and then they'll have time for the parents and grandparents and guardians and special family folks to leave, and then the 7th grade band will play, and then the 8th grade band will follow. I think everyone's very excited and encouraged to be able to get back into the schools. And you're right, the 6th grade academic team placed 2nd in regions and had some individual students that did very well, and they're starting Governor's Cup in the middle school, and the different elementary schools are all having their academic team competitions. Those are fun to go to. And I've had a chance to spend some time at the high school and volunteer, and the kids all seem like they're ready to have a little Christmas break, and I think the teachers are too, but just very appreciative of all the teachers and all the hard work that they do leading up to breaks. These last couple of weeks are tough on everyone. So I will pass it on to Ms. McHale.
Well, I did attend the orchestra concert on Friday night, both for the middle school and the high school, and it was beautiful. And it was just beautiful. So the chamber orchestra and the the concert orchestra each played their own pieces, but then came together at the very end and played a Christmas piece. And again, it was so beautiful, and it was awesome. Mr. Marcy was able to live stream that as well, so people outside the building could see that. But I think probably the most impressive thing to me always when I go to the orchestra is seeing the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So the 6th graders in particular, sometimes that's the first time they've literally ever picked up an instrument. And when you see what Mr. Bates and Mr. Marcy have done with that middle school, it is miraculous. And by the way, Mr. Bates, I met him for the first time. He is the new full-time hire that we had approved earlier this year to help Mr. Marcy, who supported every single kid in the district. And that was a great decision by us, if I do say so myself. But it was such a nice evening. The kids were super excited. Family was very excited. There were lots of siblings there, and it really was a beautiful night. I actually teared up a little bit, which doesn't take much, but I did. So,
one more thing I would add is I always appreciate the middle school and their acknowledgement of positive behavior, and they have their PBIS rewards kicking off this week, and I think that's such a great program. The kids have opportunities to be a teacher for a day if they get X amount of points, or be the principal for the day if they really max it out, and they get to shadow Miss Kirk or one of the assistant principals, and they love it. It becomes a competitive thing among the kids, and they really embrace it, and they can redeem their vouchers for everything from a piece of double bubble to the different opportunities that I mentioned. But I love that we recognize the positive behaviors, and I think that's a great cultural change. Ms. Springate?
So I would just say I'm really thankful to our staff and our students, to our families. I know this last week before the holiday break it's just a lot. There's a lot going on inside school and outside school. And so I'm really thankful for all the opportunities and the different things that our students are able to do. And I just wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
All right, thank you. We will move on. Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report and the November financial report?
so moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. Glass. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. The next item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment. Ms. Cooper, I believe we have some in person as well as some submitted.
Remind me, do you want me to go second or first?
It's okay, you can go first since you're up.
Okay. It's been a while since we've had both.
Yeah. Hi, Miss Bailey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you all doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Okay. This first comment is from Nancy Lee. Board of Education, our family is very excited for the new high school. There's no need to remind you of the issues and shortcomings of the current building. You hear those daily. In reviewing the positives that will come with this, the new school will provide opportunities that we can't imagine in the current building. These will ensure that students can meet your vision of student achievement. It will provide a better foundation for quality instruction that will ensure the district can maintain the gold standard. Students will be proud of their new school. They will see that they are valued as people, and this investment was made to help them succeed. This new building will provide collaboration space to ensure relationships with our schools and community are strengthened so that everyone will be informed and engaged. This is a strong foundation so that we can achieve and exceed the goals of the district. In short, this isn't just another building. This will be a foundational piece of our community. We are excited to see the building start. Warmest regards, Nancy Lee. Patricia Miller. Dear Board, I want to say thank you for continuing with building a new high school. We are encountering a period of complex issues and difficult times. I appreciate your willingness to continue looking forward so that we can be prepared for our future. Please do not give into being fearful and second-guessing yourselves. This community needs you to lead us through these times and continue going forward. You are displaying the traits that show us you are on the correct path. You are dedicated to this project. You are more than prepared. You have built a great team of financial experts, architects, and project managers. You are communicating effectively each month. You are responsive when questions are presented. So thank you for all of the time you are putting into this and for staying the course. I know that in the years to come, 20, 30 years from now, our community will continue to say thank you. Patricia Miller. Greg King. Dear Board of Education, I just want to send a reminder of how important it is to continue working on the new high school. Penn State's Center for Evaluation and Education Policy Analysis has issued findings on the importance of school facilities that school facilities play in improving student outcomes. This study not only reflects on the students' educational outcomes, but also takes into consideration their physical and emotional health. The study looked at 5 primary facets of school facilities: acoustics and noise, air quality, lighting, temperature, and space. In summary of the study's conclusion, while a new facility is an expensive undertaking, the positive impacts of a new facility on students and teachers are translated into dollar figures. The rewards of this investment will, by far, outstrip the cost. Further stating that policymakers should focus greater attention on the impacts of facilities and adopt long-term cost-benefit perspective on effort to improve school facilities. Thank you for your leadership and for aligning the goals of our district with studies like that of Penn State's. Greg King.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Sure thing.
And thank you for capturing the good news report every day on our website and social media and sending things like that out. I think that's great for the public to be able to see that, and I know it's always welcome. So thank you very much. Okay, the next sign up for public comment is for Michelle and Jacob Nance, who are requesting to be acknowledged as a group. And what we have decided, what we read at our November meeting was that if an individual speaks, it's a 3-minute time limit, and if it's a group, it will be a 5-minute time limit. And Miss Nance is requesting to, is it just you are speaking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Miss Nance is speaking on the treasurer's report and high school items. Miss McHale, do you mind to do the time?
I do not. Let me just get in here.
Okay, thank you.
I'm ready when you are.
All right.
Okay.
Over the past several months, I have spent close to $200 on open records requests for the purpose of gathering data to determine how our school system has or will utilize a total of nearly $6.7 million of ESSER funds received in the form of COVID relief. I have gone through all of the information with a fine-tooth comb, and this binder that I have with me is a compilation of everything I've received thus far. I want to inform everyone that the information that I have gathered is shocking. I understand why Ms. Springate keeps asking questions, and now I know why all of you try to silence her. I watched last week's meeting online, and quite frankly, it was embarrassing. The bullying that occurred would be considered unacceptable behavior by our students. In last week's edition of the Woodford Sun, Mr. Atkins was quoted as saying, "The plan has never been to use ESSER dollars to help build this new high school." This statement is a direct contradiction to the district's ARP ESSER or ESSER 3 spending plan currently posted on the district's website. Page 18 states, and I quote, "Remaining funds may be utilized to offset regularly occurring expenditures to build our bonding capacity for the upgrade of school building facilities, a common request from our community and staff survey responses." Well, I have the stakeholder survey responses for ESSER 3, which lists academic concerns and mental health and wellness as the top priorities. The new high school did not even make the list. So I'm going to ask this again. You received $4.6 million in ESSER 3 funding, and what is being done with all of this money? Why are we only using the minimum requirement of 20% of this money to address learning loss when our test scores are so poor? Why are our teachers forced to fight an uphill battle with limited resources to get our students caught up when you have plenty of money in ESSER III funding to give them the resources they need? This is what the money was intended for. We, the public, have the right to know this information, especially since you lied about the ESSER III stakeholder survey results and now you're lying about the ESSER III spending plan itself. Both statements cannot be true. Either you are attempting to use ESSER dollars for the new high school or you're not. Your words and actions do not match. Another contradiction. You stated that the architect would meet with the high school teachers after hearing multiple concerns at the public forum. This meeting still has not taken place, yet tonight you are voting to approve construction documents for the now $60 million new high school, as if those concerns were never raised. These contradictions are just a few examples of why the public has lost trust in this board and is quickly losing trust in our superintendent. We want to know, why do you value the new high school project more than the needs of our students and teachers? We, the public, have made it clear through the ESSER III stakeholder survey results and by using our voices how we feel that this money would and should be best utilized, yet we all continue to be ignored. Tonight during this meeting, I hope an explanation can be provided to the public regarding the use of over $2 million to maintain staffing allocations. Additionally, how will the $569,000 of indirect costs be used? We are already using $270,000 of other grants for indirect costs. Last week, you quoted information from KSBA trainings that you recently attended to justify your actions. Tonight, I'm going to leave you with a quote from a guidance document from the Kentucky Department of Education that was sent out to school districts in May. KDE considers it best practice to use federal funds to supplement existing state and local funds and encourages local districts to work within their established supplement, not supplant methodologies. In other words, KDE doesn't consider using ESSER dollars to cover general fund expenses a best practice strategy. If you want to follow best practice, you can't pick and choose only those that fit your agenda. I think everyone in our community agrees that we need a new high school, but not at the expense of our students and teachers by sacrificing our desperately needed ESSER funds. Please do what's right with this money, or sadly our students and teachers will be the ones to suffer the consequence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nance.
You're welcome.
The next public comment we have is from Eva Kate Probus. And she would like to talk to us about the approval of WCHS building plans.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would first like to say that I agree with the first three public comments. I'm very thankful for all the work you have put in for this new high school, and I believe it will pay off tremendously.
You can take your mask down if it.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So, my name is Eva Kate Purvis, and I'm a junior at Woodford County High School. And ever since the new high school project has been put into motion, I have been very interested. And I attended a public forum. Back in
Just step up to that mic just
Step
a
up
little
to
bit
it?
more.
There you
Yeah,
go.
right there.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
I don't use mics for now.
It's all right.
But I attended a public forum in October regarding this school, and this inspired me to create an anonymous survey highlighting student opinions on this school, where I received 177 responses from various students. I join you this evening not to change the high school plans you vote to approve tonight, but to instead shine a light on student perspectives as you approve these plans. From my survey, I gathered 4 points of interest from students, being structure and condition of the school, the performing arts spaces, overcrowding of the current school, and athletics. I have a paper here for you all. Most of these points will be resolved by building a new building. However, there is still concern from the students. So my first point is structure and condition. And one student quoted that there is almost always a leak somewhere. When it rains outside, the ceiling above the gym will leak with lots of water. The weight room constantly floods and the foundation is cracking. So this is on the current structure of the new school. And this point mainly relates to the old school structure, and simply building a new school that you are all working towards will resolve most of these issues that a lot of students commented on. My second point is about the performing arts spaces of the new high school. Students are extremely excited to be getting an auditorium And one student's main concern with the current high school was a lack of an auditorium as well as an orchestra room. So the addition of these spaces in the base bid of the high school is extremely exciting and is a selling point for many students. Another response said that, I'm a music student and I'm intrigued by the idea of an auditorium and a larger music wing in general. Overall, students are overjoyed to see the arts being invested in within the new school, and we are thankful that your plans are so dedicated to the performing arts. My third point that a lot of students brought up in my survey was the overcrowding within the current high school, which will also be resolved by the wing structure that you are going to implement in the new building plans. One student said that while our current school has very well thought out design, it was never meant to hold as many students as it does now. It definitely doesn't have nearly enough classrooms, and the gym and cafe can't hold the entire student body at once in a safe fashion. As for the new high school, students are still worried about overcrowding, saying that they like the layout with the wings, but they're worried about it causing slower traffic. However, based on the public forum, I was assured that the wing structure will not cause overcrowding. It will help with the movement of students within the school. My fourth point is athletics within the new high school, and students are hopeful about the athletic plans that they saw when I sent out a survey showing what the future fields will look like. One student said that they like the intent to help sports teams out, as well as building more for athletics, tennis courts, football fields, baseball, and soccer within the new school. And many students commented on how impressive the new facilities looked, but some worried about how the athletic complexes are all future plans. I understand that without passing the nickel tax to raise general funds, and with using lots of available funds to build the school itself, it'll be difficult to find the money for a $7 million field house, $1 million track, and other facilities, especially when we know that we have to use unrestricted funding to build these athletic projects. Can we realistically expect to use general funding for a multi-million-dollar array of athletic complexes while also building a high school that will total nearly $50 million in cost? I truly hope we do, because of the success of athletics within our school district. As I finish today, I'd like to leave you with one quote by a student in my survey saying that I will probably not be attending this high school, but I believe that every student should get a say. The current students may not see the school to completion, but we are invested in this project because we understand that our questions and comments impact the future students who cannot speak for themselves currently. As students, we represent not only ourselves, but the young adults who will precede us and make this community better. Thank you so much for your time and consideration as students as you vote to approve plans for the new high school, and I really appreciate all the work you have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Provost.
You're welcome.
Your comments make me think of the quote, "Blessed are those that plant trees knowing they'll never enjoy the shade." And I think it's very commendable that you're looking forward to other kids being able to enjoy something and giving your input. Thank you very much for your thoughtful comments.
Thank you. Thank you for your work for the new high school as well.
Thank you. Okay, the next public comment is from Samara Miller, and she would also like to speak about the high school building plans.
I did not time Ms. Provost.
Sorry.
I did not time Ms. Provost. Do you want me to continue to time?
Just tell her that
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
I have no comment. She was going to donate her time.
Oh, okay.
You were
Perfect.
Well, thank you for coming and being involved, just the same. All right. Thank you all very much for your comments. And we will move on. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or is there anyone that would like something drawn out from the consent agenda and voted on separately? All right, then is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Moving on to the regular agenda. Is there a motion to accept notification of personnel matters?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Glass. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion to accept the notification of payment of bills?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. Glass. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the November 8th, 15th, the November 8th and 15th board meeting?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Glass. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Is there a motion to approve the 2022-2023 instructional calendar, which I assume would be option 1? Yes.
So I think on that you have to choose an option.
Yeah. Calendar option 1 as recommended by the calendar committee, and Mr. Wells is confirming that that is option 1. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Oh, there's a motion by Ms. Glass and a second by Ms. Springate. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes 4-0. The next item is it agenda item 1, Angel? Is 1 meeting?
Option A is 2 meetings, option B is 1 meeting.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt option A or B? So
I
you
would
say-
move to approve option B, please.
There's a motion to adopt option B, which is 1 board meeting a month. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale and a second by Ms. Glass. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is that, want to be clear with the public that this doesn't mean we will only meet once a month. When there is a need for a second meeting, such as a budget session, such as any sort of planning session, we will still have the opportunity to do that. In addition, I think that it would help with availability because we won't have to schedule meetings at 5 p.m. where it's more difficult for people to get to. It in no way, shape, or form, I believe, will reduce the amount of discussion. I think that it's a wise use of our resources and, again, keeps the flexibility there to have the 2 meetings.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving option B for the board meeting dates for 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. The next item is, I will need a motion to approve a petition for a KDE for a waiver to 702 KAR 4170 to permit the use of sloped lightweight insulating concrete in lieu of sloping roof structures for the new Woodford County High School. For the reasons stated in the attached letter from Ross Tarrant Architects, the lightweight insulating concrete is integral to the roof structure.
So moved, but I cannot repeat what you just said.
That's fine. There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Glass. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda item as read, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. The next item is approve the petition for KDE for a waiver to 702 KAR 4170 with regards to the prohibition of the gymnasium floor inserts for the new Woodford County High School. As stated in the attached letter from Ross Tarrant Architects, the volleyball floor inserts will have covers that are to be mounted perfectly flush with the adjacent wood flooring, such that when they are not in use, they will not present a tripping hazard.
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Glass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McHale. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. The next item on the agenda is to approve construction documents for the new high school project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Glass. Is there any discussion?
The only thing that I just want to remind of is a discussion we had last week that this this approval does not say what exactly the final design is going to look like. It includes all the different options. It still has room for input from the teachers, from, not from maybe the overall design, but certainly certain things inside of it, as we discussed last week. So I think that to say that this is going to box us into everything is finished tonight is not a true statement. So,
All right, thank you. Is any further discussion?
Yes, I just want to say that the Value Engineering Committee held the forum to get input from the community, and their feedback has not been addressed. Also in the forum, it was stated that the teachers would be provided an opportunity to meet with the architect to address their concerns, and again, this has not happened. Secondly, I did ask KDE for a list of districts that are utilizing the 25-year bond and did not receive any names of districts. So if that's something that you could find out, Mr. Atkins, that would be great. The third thing is I emailed Mr. Atkins and Mr. Martello asking about the anticipated end of the year surplus between our revenue and expenditures. Mr. Martello responded with, the balance could end in either a deficit or a surplus. And so with this in mind, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with the $60 million high school that I believe will result in a property tax increase for the foreseeable future. The last thing is I'm just concerned about the quality of the building we're getting. Of course, we don't have the best flooring, HVAC system, and no athletic facilities. I just had hoped and believed that we could do better for our kids.
Okay, I think that at the risk of beginning another argument, we have sought input from lots of our teachers. I agree that the Value Engineering Committee has not met again since the public forum. We addressed that last week, and we will meet in January. And to Ms. McHale's point, this is not, that we've been told time and again that the construction documents are a living, breathing thing until we basically start construction. So those are concerns that still can be addressed, and so many have been. This has been a process that we've sought more public input than any other district, as according to both our construction manager and our architect. So I do feel like we've been very inclusive on that. We had hive times for our students to be able to reach out. We had probably 55 meetings for department heads with the architects that are documented, that have been shared with us. And I do think that we're doing our very best to be inclusive for everyone on this process.
Well, I don't really have anything to add, but I do think it might be a good idea just to hold off on approving these until after those meetings have happened. And so that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Then there's a motion and a second to approve construction documents for the new Woodford County High School project. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. The next item on the agenda is a motion, or is to approve the BG2 construction document phase for the new high school project. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. McHale. I will second that. Any discussion on the BG2? Hearing none, all of those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. The next item on the agenda is to approve the BG3 construction document phase for the new high school project. Is there a motion to approve? There's a motion by Ms. Glass. I will second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-1. Are there any board member communications? All right. And then the discussion items that we had included the audit report, which I had added, but I think we went over that last week. I don't have anything to add. Just I wanted the chance to follow up with questions and then to also to extend our thanks to the finance department and to all the school bookkeepers. Is there anything anyone else would like to add on the audit item? All right, then the next item is something that Ms. Springate requested that we add regarding fiscal year 2020 and 21.
I am going to share just the documents that I used for this, so I will just pass those around.
I would like to note that I requested that these documents be shared by email twice, and you said that it wasn't specific documents that you wanted to share, it was just general.
Right, and again, I think when you look at the documents, you'll see what they are. The first one is a sheet where I did a subtraction problem. The second one is the recoding of the general ESSER fund expenses that we received. And again, I did say these are just emails we received from the superintendent. The third one is a munis report. The fourth one is the ESSER 2 plan that we as a board approved. And the last one is just a policy. So I have extra copies. I'm just going to sit on the table if anybody wants a copy.
Is there anything further you'd like to add?
Yes. So the reason that I asked for this to be added was because I was just getting a lot of different information in the meetings and from the superintendent and from Mr. Martello, and I just wanted to understand and clarify. So I thought this would be the best way to kind of do it. So if you look, I passed around my documents that I used for work. They're documents that we've all received. There's nothing new in there. There's nothing controversial, I hope. But again, if there is, feel free to ask. So first, I just want to say, at our most recent budget committee meeting, Mr. Atkins stated that he inherited an $800,000 deficit. Based on the information in the reports that we've been given, I don't know how this is possible. Based on my calculations, it appears the deficit is was $284,575. So I just put together the packet so that you can kind of see where I got that from and help me understand if there's something I'm missing. So first, if you look at page 2, that's the redistribution of general fund expenses and child nutrition indirect costs. These transactions positively impacted the general fund by $820,773. If the deficit had been $800,000, as stated by Mr. Atkins, then our surplus should have been $20,773. But on page 3, I see it's not the case. Page 3 is the first page of our November monthly report. Here we see that our beginning balance increased by $536,198 over fiscal year 21. So from this, it appears that the majority of the recoding of the ESSER funds was used to create a surplus. If you subtract the $536,198 surplus from the $820,773 on page 2, then that's what gave me the total of $284,575. Is this the deficit that you inherited, Mr. Atkins? Is this correct?
I can tell you that Mr. Martello never handed me a deficit, and we're going to get into it this way. I had a meeting with the previous superintendent before I left, and he estimated the deficit to be somewhere between $700,000 to $800,000.
Well, I guess I'm just asking.
I guess we've spent the last 2 years, Ms. Springate, with you quoting $1 million deficit each year.
I'm not sure, I don't want to go off on tangents. I'm not really sure how that's relevant. I'm just trying to get a handle on what the deficit Mr. Atkins inherited was. So is the number, in fact, $284,575? Would that be correct?
Mr. Martello,
looking
is that
at your
correct?
sheet that you recoded, Mr. Martello?
If so, you show that that's after the recoding that happened once Mr.
Right. That's the question. So after the recoding, is that what happened? Oh, there's copies over there, too. That's the question.
I tell you what, since I'm just getting this tonight, I'll respond to you in an email with an answer to what you're stating.
Okay, and hopefully you can respond in the next open meeting so the public can be aware too. I believe that's the correct number, but I'm not super sure. That's what I have in adding and subtracting. But anyway, so my thing is, why it's a big deal to me is that this means that we recoded over $500,000 ESSER funds to the general fund, That means we didn't use that $500,000 in ESSER funds for our kids. None of this was approved as part of our ESSER
How can you say
spending
that money
plan.
isn't used for kids?
It was
It's
used
sitting in
for-
our general fund. It's not being used. That's
It
what I'm
was
saying.
used for cleaning.
No, it's sitting there. It's a surplus. It hasn't been used. It's a
Sherry,
surplus.
for 2 years, you've talked about budget deficits.
This-
And now this has been recoded. They were obviously coded in error the first time. We were told from the get-go that the spray cleaning was going to be paid for out of COVID relief funds, whether it was the very
Look at the
first-
documents, Ms. Bradley. It's not talking about spraying. This is talking about an actual
Bluegrass
surplus.
Cleaning Services is spraying.
This is talking about an actual surplus. So what I'm talking about is not if we ended in deficit or not. What I'm talking about is how much the deficit was. So if you subtract the numbers of the surplus, of the recoding, and the recoding I don't think was done because there was an error. I think it was just a decision to recode.
You're correct.
Okay, so it wasn't an error. There was nothing
Yeah,
like
it
that.
wasn't an error.
She was talking about the
I'm
cleaning.
saying if something was coded to the general fund that was COVID cleaning, it
Should have
should
been
not
paid
have
for out of
been.
ESSER
It
dollars.
should have been paid for out of general, or out of, not out of general fund money, but out of COVID relief money.
But it was not. It
That's
was
right, so
coded
you
general fund,
recoded it
so
to
we took it
correct that.
put
And
it-
that's almost 25% of the $800,000.
And that was used to keep our staff and students safe.
And again, what I'm talking about is the approved plan we had for ESSER 2 and the recoding. I don't know if that came out of year's money, came out of CARES money. I don't know if we actually coded the cleaning and sanitizing to the GEARS or the ESSER money. I'm not talking about that. What I'm speaking
He
to
does.
is the surplus that we had of the recoding. So these were items that were recoded. So the deficit of 800,000, I don't believe is correct. Number one, I believe that's really 254 or 284,575. So that's one thing. And then the next thing is that created a surplus of using ESSER money for this list, and this is the list they gave us that they said they recoded. So it's not a fluid document. This is the list that was recoded.
Okay.
So
But
after
you know what,
that
Ms. Wingate?
recoding,
I could go through and make up my own numbers as to what I think it should be as well.
these are the numbers that we got
what-
from the superintendent.
At the
So-
end of the day, we have audited financial statements that show us all this information. The ESSER list that you say was approved, I specifically remember asking the question, and we all agreed that if we wanted to change this, that it was no big deal to change. We were not boxing ourselves into these numbers. So there is no point in you continuing to bring this up.
I think if you just let me finish, maybe you
Oh
would
my God.
understand the point.
Yeah, I would
So what I'm
love
asking,
that.
what I'm saying is, that means that due to the recoding, these are the documents that were recoded. This is not me making anything up. These are the documents given to us. That resulted in a $500,000 that is in our general fund as a surplus right now. That's just the fact. That's subtracting the numbers and seeing the fact. And so I guess that I'm confused because none of this was part of the approved plan. We did a spending plan, an approved budget
Again.
in May, and so that leads me to my next set of concerns.
But again, the approved spending fund was always known that it could change. And we agreed that that was a good thing at the time.
Again, if I could just finish, maybe you could kind of see where I'm thinking and what I'm thinking. So in the months of April and May, the board spent a good sum of money on our attorney to render an opinion regarding the board's responsibility in terms of approving these ESSER funds. The board approved a specific ESSER 2 spending plan or a budget on May the 10th. A copy is attached as page 4. As you can see, it's a specific budget. It is not a framework as was suggested. Next, if you turn to page 5, you will see a copy of the board policy 04.31. Under expenditure of funds, the policy states, expenditures from any district fund shall be made in accordance with the budget approved by the board. Most of the expenses on page 2 do not fall within the approved ESSER 2 budget. Additionally, all the expenses from fiscal year 21, and I assume the same is true for the indirect costs. I would also think that the recoding took place prior to June 30th, with that being the date of the close of the fiscal year. Given Mr. Atkins' employment didn't begin until July 1st, Who authorized the recoding of these expenditures and the recovery of the indirect costs?
Okay, there's a couple of things that I would like to respond to on that. And Grant, please feel free to correct me if I'm mistaken, but the plan that the board approved, the ESER 2 plan, was approved while Mr. Hawkins was here. And more than once in meetings, he said, this is a broad strokes allocation of the funds that we're receiving, and it will have to be tweaked as we go along. And what my understanding is, Mr. Chenoweth, is that this budget that the board gave is a framework. It falls to the task of the superintendent, who operates as the chief executive officer and the chief financial officer, to use those funds in the most prudent way possible. Is that correct?
Before I try to specifically answer your question, I think we need to be very careful about the use of words, and that spending plan is not the same thing as a budget. Mr. Hawkins specifically at that meeting pointed out that it was a gray area, and I agreed that it was a gray area as to what the board had to approve at that meeting, and we were acting out of an abundance of caution because of what I will say is unclear guidance from the Department of Education at the time. So the board approving that ESER's plan was something that the superintendent was of the position, didn't even require board approval. And the discussion that he and I had in preparing the agenda was better to be safe than sorry. If it doesn't require board approval, no harm in putting this plan in front of the board. If it does require board approval, we have a deadline coming up of the middle of May, and it needs to be on this meeting's agenda. Subsequent to that May meeting, including the most recent document that I've seen from KDE, is that these spending plans did not specifically require board approval. That the caution that we exercised this past May, at that meeting, that we were overly cautious. You all were asked to approve a plan that really needed only be presented to you all, not actually approved by you. But calling it a budget and then applying all the rules that we would talk about spending from a budget, I think is a mistake. Because it was a plan, Mr. Hawkins specified during that meeting, this can all change. This is our current plan from our current vantage point. So as I understand it, the most recent guidance from your all's training is, yes, all of this should be far more flexible for the administration and shouldn't be treated as line item budget expenditures. And therefore, it moves this into the same type of, the same way you spend other federal grant monies. You all don't approve line items for how IDEA money is spent. That budget is, you approve assurances that it will be spent consistent with the law, but you all are not approving each line item as to how that money, that federal grant money, is being spent. And the most recent guidance that I've seen on the ESSER's money is that it ought to be treated the same, that you all would not have line item level decision making.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chenoweth, my question was, given Mr. Atkins' employment didn't begin until July 1, who could authorize the recoding of these expenditures and the recovery of these indirect costs from fiscal year 21 that ended on June 30th?
To the extent money is fungible, I'm not really sure that that's not an appropriate matter of reconciliation. Mm-hmm. There's a reason there's a delay between the end of a fiscal year and the time that the financial report for that fiscal year has to be prepared. And I think that exactly is for going back and housekeeping, making sure things were attributed to the correct budget category, that if something was a restricted fund, that nothing got attributed to that category that should not have been. So whoever is in the driver's seat during that reconciliation period before the financial report is finalized is whoever's in the driver's seat. And if that's a new superintendent that has taking the driver's seat July 1, then they're the only person that can finalize that process with the finance officer.
What was that deadline, Mr. Martello, for the submission of the AFI?
So you, like Mr. Chenoweth had mentioned, you have the physical June 30th timeline where we close a period. Well, we have in essence, the period 12 is through June 30th, but you have up to an AFR submission, which occurred on the 15th of November. You have up until approximately about mid-October to make adjustments to enable the auditor to get that final report, that annual financial report, in to the state and to the feds. And so just because June 30th hits does not mean you do not have the opportunity to make some adjustments per what Mr. Chenoweth stated.
And that's exactly what we talked about when the auditors were here.
Yes.
Twice. That those adjustments have been made.
Yes.
They were made appropriately, and they were made in conjunction, actually, with the auditors.
Yes.
Entirely appropriate.
Because there are adjustments that I make in conjunction with Mr. Atkins, but there are also adjustments that the auditor gives us per their direction to close out the financials. So there's that period of time where, a good majority of the expenditures and the adjustments have been made on or before June 30th. But there's also that opportunity, those 4 months, to make those appropriate adjustments. And that's why you have an unaudited file submission, and then you have a final audited final submission, and then the auditor makes sure that any differences or net changes, that there's the appropriate journal entries or whatever backup documentation that's present with that before that submission.
I think all this information is very helpful. Thank you. Mr. Chenoweth, is it an adjustment if you do not follow the board allocation and you use funds from different sources that were not approved? Is that an adjustment?
I would have to look at a concrete example to answer that, and I say if you get into that level of detail, then I would need to spend a lot of time reviewing exactly what you're talking about and how things were shifted to know if it's to even be able to respond to your question. I just don't know.
Okay.
Could we take the advice of our external auditors who are truly the experts in that situation, who have adjusted and approved all of those documents?
That was addressed to you, Grant.
Yeah, it's for whatever reason when Ms. McHale speaks, it sounds
muffled?
further away. I don't know why that is.
I feel like I'm right on top of it.
You can take it.
I said, is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
I said, instead of using you as a finance expert, would it not be appropriate to take the advice of our external auditors who we signed an engagement for and paid for the review, and who in many cases suggested the adjustments or at a minimum have reviewed and approved the adjustments?
The answer to that is yes, that it is a better question for them, and I'll tell you that's the answer that I would give if the question was coming from Mr. Martello or from Mr. Adkins or from a board member directly to me one-on-one, is that's a question to ask your auditor or that's a question to ask the finance folks at KDE. So much of that is premised on what guidance KDE offers. There's not specific statutes and regulations that would answer each of these questions.
And I actually did specifically ask that question of the auditor, whether the items that were changed and recoded within that window were appropriate uses. And they said that everything that they reviewed was absolutely an appropriate recoding of those expenses. And
with very high marks on
And
appropriateness in general.
Again, I would also say that we were always told that certain things were going to be paid from the ESSER funds, and I'm glad that that was corrected and removed from the general fund and paid with those dollars that were supposed to be used that way.
And again, I don't know that they were supposed to be used if we approved a different fund to pay for them, but that's just a moot point. On June 21st, 9 days before the end of the fiscal year 21, the board actually had an opportunity to approve a capital funds request to cover these expenses for the purpose of eliminating the anticipated deficit. The board voted against it. So given that this vote took place just days before the end of the fiscal year, I guess I'm just wondering how these adjustments and recodings were made when we voted specifically against some of these things.
Real quick, I have a-
That's two separate issues, though. Recoding an expense from the general fund to the ESSERS fund versus a capital funds request, which is taking money that's earmarked for capital projects and using it on general fund expenses. That's not the same thing.
It's using funds from different sources that the board voted with. So what I'm saying is the board said, use this fund, not that one.
The board said, we don't want to use our capital funds to pay general fund expenses.
And again, that discussion was had in open meeting and we voted. So then the recoding took place, not in open meeting, it took place somewhere else, and it took place without a vote. So I guess that's really one of my concerns.
And I do think Mr. Chenoweth just said that falls within the purview of the superintendent and CFO. I don't want to, and I know this couldn't be your intent, but I don't want to build any mistrust with the community and have sort of these lying implications of some wrongdoing or malfeasance on anyone's part. I know that's not your intention. I just want to make
I'm just asking questions
Sure,
about
no,
what happened,
I
and
just
I want to
wanna
do it in an
clarify
open
that.
meeting so that there is no discussion going
Sure.
behind closed doors, so that this is done publicly, so that everyone can hear Mr. Chenoweth speak and anyone at this table speak, because I feel like that's the place to do it. So that way, it's done publicly. There's no behind-the-scenes talking, none of that kind of stuff going on. Mr. Atkins started as superintendent on July 1st, which was a Thursday, and then he was on vacation the following week. So my question is, when was the decision made to increase the contingency and beginning balance? And was anyone consulted?
I don't think that anyone made a decision to increase a fund balance. They corrected expenditures that had been pulled from one pot of money and put them to the correct spot. The auditor reviewed these transactions and said that they were appropriate.
If you look at the Munis report that's attached as page 3, what happened was, as a consequence of this, there was an increase to the general fund of over $500,000. And so that's what I'm talking about. That decision had to be made, and so that's the increase that I'm talking about.
And they have said that increase resulted from the recoding. And last week, I think your comment was that you were happy to have those monies in the general fund because you knew those were being spent on kids.
I didn't say that, or if I did, I certainly didn't mean to say that.
You definitely did.
Can I ask a question real quick? How much was the capital funds request? How much?
Oh my goodness, I don't.
Anybody remember a dollar amount for that?
No.
800,000? More than that?
I don't remember. It wasn't enough to offset the total
Yeah, we can go
deficit.
back and look, I mean, because that was in that meeting, so we can go back and look. Anyway, I guess my bottom line is why this matters. It matters to me because the board makes financial decisions that impact our students and staff. So I'm beginning to hear from schools that their learning recovery plans, which included their math interventionalists and other important components, will not be funded next year. Is that true?
Well, at this point, it's like we've always said, it's a fluid process. Mr. Asher is assessing with the schools and doing a request for proposals or a request on what the schools need, and that's something that Mr. Asher, I, and Mr. Atkins, and I will sit down and assess and look at those budget dollars with whether it's 2 or 3 and just assess. There's still an issue, Ms. Springate, that this board has been presented and told about, in recent years. When we project a deficit, and we've had some deficits. So that's still the elephant in the room.
Mr. Martello, what's been the biggest deficit since you've only been here, a year and a half, 2 years?
Off the top of my head, I know it was over I can get the numbers, but
it was.
I don't want to
It was
speak
never
up.
a million, because that was something that was mentioned meeting after meeting after meeting, and the cash position never changed by that much. The answer to the other question was the capital funds request was for $453,475. Now, interestingly, some of the items that were on that capital funds request were appropriate, we know now, but the guidance was different from KDE at that point. One of the things was 3 school buses. The first recommendation from KDE was that that wasn't something that fell within that ESSER money, and now we have been told that it is something that's an acceptable use. So it
We
is,
just received approval last week or 2 weeks ago.
right.
Yeah, I think there's some differences in ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 that
Right.
could be approved.
But that's kind of something else that has to be kept in mind is these guidelines come to us. We're not creating them on how these different funds have to be spent. It's not different than our Title I funds. You know, there are stipulations on how those are spent, and we are governed on that, and we are audited to check that we are in compliance with that. I just want to make sure that we're being very clear and transparent on that.
And again, I just want to make sure that we're spending the ESSER dollars on students, on recovery, on learning loss, on mental and social emotional needs. The other thing that I have read was that the Read to Achieve grants are undergoing some changes, and we might possibly lose our reading recovery programs. Is that true?
That's
Not at our
a
level,
state,
that's at the
state
federal
level.
Or I'm just asking if it's true. Like, I'm not
I
blaming
don't
anybody.
think
I'm just
anybody-
asking questions.
I don't think anybody's applying back for it, because previously it was, you were able to use it for salaries, those types of things, and it's not gonna be used for that anymore.
Okay. The other thing that I heard was that we're having, of course, increased mental health needs that has been mentioned at our first budget committee meeting, along with several other items. And the reason that I ask is because this is the reason that I wanted the needs assessments. I wanted the board to be able to make financial decisions knowing about the needs of our schools and with the input from our teachers and our principals. Would it be possible for us to have our reading interventionalists or math interventionalists come and speak at the January meeting or have a work session so that we can kind of hear?
Well, I think, Mr. Asher, is this something that maybe you could weigh in on? Do you feel like this is something that you are handling within the school needs and
Yes, I'll just say 2 things. One, and I mentioned this last week with needs assessment, ongoing. Circumstances do change. You know, the RTA is just one example, so that is ongoing. It is different in that the schools are not getting an allocation, so to speak, but we have put in a process, an RFP process, request for a proposal, to help schools meet their needs. So we're just in that process right now, and that's looking forward to the 22-23 school year. Again, to help them address needs as they see fit.
and you feel like we have good safeguards in there that you're using now to look at those?
We do.
Good.
But it's just ongoing, as
Sure.
I said. So.
Do you think it would be helpful for us to kind of evaluate those reading interventionalists and math interventionalists and kind of see what they've been able to do with the school over the past year and to kind of see if that's something we want to continue with?
Well, and I
think
also,
that's out of your purview.
I think that that's
To
dependent
invite
on the different
folk-
schools.
No, you didn't say anything about inviting, you said to evaluate. That's
I said,
definitely out of your purview.
no, it is absolutely within the board's purview if we want to fund
To
programs and if
evaluate
they, yes, we need to
personnel?
know if they're working or not. Otherwise, why would we fund them? We have to know if the reading recovery is a good program or the math intervention is working in the schools to evaluate the data. Otherwise, we're just spending money without evaluating, and that would be really bad board member behavior.
But to answer your question, do we of course we do.
Right,
I
but
mean,
would it be helpful for us as a board to hear that information and to hear that evaluation, to hear that progress or what that means to the schools? That's what I'm saying. Not that I want to come down and do a survey. I'm saying, would it be helpful? I think since we approved that allocation and that's something that we're doing, and of course we're always looking at progress and the needs of the students, to hear from the reading interventionists and the math interventionists, to see what they're doing, to see if that's something we want to continue to fund, or if the results aren't there, and that would be something that maybe we would look at doing a little differently or funding a little differently, that kind of thing.
Mr. Asher,
go ahead.
isn't it typical that building principals kind of establish their needs individually because what north side needs may be different than what south side needs?
Right. And I mentioned this last week. As far as the needs assessments, they each have their own separate that are one of those diagnostics to fuel their CSIP basically. And then beyond that, we rely upon MTSS. And you're looking at your data. Right now, we're in the winter assessment window with our map in general and all of our other assessments that are going on to specifically evaluate many of the points that you just brought up.
It would be great to hear from them, and I do appreciate that. You know, my bottom line is just that we've received over $6 million in emergency relief funds to address the impact COVID-19 has had and continues to have on our students and staff. So that's why I'm asking questions and seeking answers. I just want to know what the needs are and to make sure that that money is spent on our students and staff. So in closing, I just want to say that I will continue to advocate on behalf of what I believe is best for our kids. They've always been my priority and will remain that. So that is why I ask questions about the money, and that's why I want to make sure that we're using it in the right ways and look at, you know, how much we're getting in and how much is going out. So I think that's just really an important thing to discuss and to be transparent with the community so that they can understand that also.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All right, there are no information items. Mr. Adkins, is there a need for an executive session?
None.
Then is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion by Ms. Springate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Ms. McHale. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes 4-0 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming, and most especially thank you to our students for coming. Lizzie and Eva Kate, you guys were wonderful.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Lizzie, that's not making it out of here.